My husband inherited $5 million. Then he said, I want a divorce. I never thought I'd be one of those women sharing my life story on Reddit. But here I am. 2 years ago, my world shattered when my husband of 12 years looked me in the eye and said those words no spouse wants to hear. I want a divorce. The timing wasn't coincidental. Just 3 weeks earlier, he'd inherited $5 million from an uncle I'd never even heard him mention before. One day we were Mark and Ellie, the couple who met in college, built a modest life in Minneapolis, and were saving for a down payment on our forever home. The next, he was a millionaire with one foot already out the door. The beginning of the end. Mark and I met in our junior year at University of Minnesota. I was studying business with a focus on digital marketing. He was in computer science. We were both ambitious but practical. After graduation, I took a marketing position at a mid-sized company, while he joined a tech startup. We married at 25, both bringing modest student loans and big dreams to the relationship. For 10 years, we lived like most millennials, paying off debt, building careers, occasionally splurging on a nice vacation, but mostly being responsible. We rented a 2-bedroom apartment, drove sensible cars, and put what we could into our 401ks. I was making decent money as a marketing director, and Mark had worked his way up to a senior developer position. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We were a team. At least that's what I thought. Then came the call. Mark's estranged Uncle Howard had passed away. Mark hadn't seen him since he was a kid. Some family drama I never fully understood kept them apart. But apparently, Uncle Howard had been quite the savvy investor and had no children of his own. Mark was his only nephew. Just like that, my husband became a millionaire. The transformation, the change wasn't immediate, but it was unmistakable. First came the new clothes. Mark had always been a jeans and t-shirt guy, but suddenly he was ordering designer shirts and custom suits. Then he traded in his Honda for a Tesla. Then came the boys' trips to Vegas and Miami. I've worked hard for years, he'd say when I raised concerns about his spending. Don't I deserve to enjoy this a little? Of course he did. I wasn't against enjoying their good fortune. I just thought we should be smart about it. Maybe pay off our student loans completely. Buy that house we'd been dreaming of. Set some aside for future children. Build our future together. But while I was planning our future, Mark was planning his exit. I discovered this when I overheard him on the phone with someone, laughing about how he was finally going to upgrade his entire life. When confronted, he didn't even try to deny it. Look, Ellie, he said, leaning against our kitchen counter with a confidence I'd never seen before. We married young. We were different people then. I've outgrown this life. Outgrown us. Outgrown us. I repeated, unable to process what I was hearing. I want different things now. I want to travel the world, live in a penthouse downtown, drive exotic cars. That's not you. You're comfortable. Predictable. Tears stung my eyes. So after 12 years, I'm too predictable for the new millionaire Mark? Don't make this uglier than it needs to be, he said, sliding a folder across the table. I've already spoken to a lawyer. This is fair. You get the furniture, your car, and $100,000. Clean break. I stared at the folder, then back at the stranger wearing my husband's face. 12 years of marriage, and you think $100,000 is fair? He shrugged. We both worked. You have your own money. The inheritance is mine. It has nothing to do with you. I didn't sign anything that day. Instead, I called in sick to work the next morning and made an appointment with the best divorce attorney in Minneapolis. The strategy: Jennifer Monroe was a petite woman with a reputation for being a shark in divorce court. Her office walls were lined with thank you notes from clients. When I finished telling her my story, she didn't offer sympathy. She offered strategy. Minnesota is an equitable distribution state, she explained. While inheritances are typically considered separate property, how your husband has handled this money matters. Has he deposited it in joint accounts? Used it for joint purchases or expenses? I thought about it. He's paid off his car loan from our joint account, and he booked some of his trips using our shared credit card, though he later reimbursed it. Jennifer smiled for the first time. That's commingling. He's blurred the lines between separate and marital property. And there's more. You've been married 12 years, during which you both contributed to the household. Even if the inheritance itself isn't fully shared, your years of support while he built his career count for something. I left her office with a plan, and for the first time since the call, a glimmer of hope. That night, Mark didn't come home until after midnight. He'd been out celebrating with his new friends, other young professionals he'd met at upscale bars and exclusive clubs. He was surprised to find me still awake, sitting calmly at our dining table. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told him, keeping my voice steady. "About the divorce." His eyes narrowed suspiciously. "And I think you're right. We have grown apart. But I don't agree with your terms." He laughed, actually laughed. "What leverage do you think you have, Ellie? The inheritance is mine. You signed a rental agreement instead of buying a house, because you were always so cautious. Your name isn't on anything substantial." I smiled. "You might want to consult a better lawyer, Mark. You've made some mistakes." His smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about commingling assets. I'm talking about 12 years of supporting your career, while putting mine on the back burner. I'm talking about documented evidence of your dating profiles that went live just days after you received your inheritance." The color drained from his face. "You're spying on me?" "No, Mark. I'm protecting myself from someone who clearly planned to blindside me. Did you really think I wouldn't fight for what I've earned in this marriage?" He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The next day, I moved into a furnished short-term rental and followed Jennifer's advice. I documented everything and prepared for war. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life. Mark fought dirty. He tried to paint me as a gold digger, conveniently forgetting that I'd supported him when he took 3 months off to learn a new programming language early in his career. He tried to hide assets, but Jennifer was always 3 steps ahead. The worst part wasn't the legal battle. It was watching the man I had loved for over a decade transform into someone I barely recognized. He started dating a 23-year-old Instagram model. He bought a penthouse downtown. He posted constantly about his new life and freedom. Meanwhile, I poured myself into work and reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. My boss, seeing my dedication despite personal turmoil, offered me an opportunity to spearhead our company's expansion into digital content creation, a project I'd been pitching for years. Work became my sanctuary. I started a twice-weekly workout routine with my old college roommate, Alice, who'd recently divorced her own husband. On Sundays, I volunteered teaching digital literacy to seniors. The busier I stayed, the less time I had to dwell on Mark's betrayal. For months into the divorce proceedings, I made a discovery that changed everything. While gathering financial documents, I found emails proving Mark had been in contact with his estranged uncle for at least 2 years before the inheritance. In fact, he'd been visiting Uncle Howard regularly, cultivating a relationship while keeping it hidden from me. "This changes things," Jennifer said when I showed her the emails. "He committed fraud by misrepresenting the nature of the inheritance. He deliberately concealed an ongoing relationship with a wealthy relative from you, his spouse." The judge agreed. When presented with evidence that Mark had been planning this exit strategy for years, deliberately hiding his relationship with his uncle, the court was not impressed. Neither was Mark's attorney, who looked increasingly uncomfortable as Jennifer systematically dismantled their case. The settlement. In the end, we settled out of court. Mark couldn't risk a judge's ruling after the evidence we'd presented. I received $1.8 million of the inheritance, far more than the insulting $100,000 he'd initially offered, plus our joint savings and half of his 401k. As we left the mediator's office, Mark finally spoke directly to me for the first time in months. "I hope you're happy," he said bitterly. "You've taken half of what was rightfully mine." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. "No, Mark. I took what was rightfully mine after 12 years of partnership. The sad thing is, I would have happily built a new life with you if you'd just been honest. We could have enjoyed that money together." He had no response to that. We both knew it was true. The rebirth. The first thing I did with my settlement was pay off my student loans. The second was to invest in myself. I'd always dreamed of starting my own digital marketing consultancy, focused on helping small businesses. With financial security behind me, I could finally take that leap. I found a small commercial space in an up-and-coming neighborhood, hired 2 recent marketing graduates as assistants, and launched Ellison Digital Strategy. My years of corporate experience gave me credibility, and my personal story, which I occasionally shared with female entrepreneurs, gave me authenticity. Within a year, we had 20 clients and had to move to a larger office. By the 18-month mark, I had 8 employees and had been featured in a regional business magazine as one of Minnesota's women entrepreneurs to watch. The irony wasn't lost on me. If Mark hadn't betrayed me, I might never have found the courage to start my own business. I might have stayed in my comfortable corporate job, playing it safe. As for Mark, social media told the story. The 23-year-old left him for a music producer. The Tesla got repossessed. Apparently, he'd over-leveraged himself buying property at the peak of the market. His startup attempt failed after burning through investors' money with nothing to show for it. Last I heard, he was back working as a developer at a company much like the one he'd left years earlier. His friends vanished when his lifestyle downgraded. Turns out money can buy company, but not actual friendship. He triumphed. 3 years after the day Mark asked for a divorce, I received an email from him. He wanted to meet for coffee to catch up. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. He looked older, tired. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by the kind of business casual you'd find at any Target. He fidgeted with his coffee cup as I sat down across from him. "You look great," he said. "I've been following your company online. Congratulations on the expansion to Chicago." "Thank you," I replied. "What can I do for you, Mark?" He sighed. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of therapy, actually. I handled everything wrong. The inheritance, the divorce, everything after." I waited, sipping my latte. "I was stupid," he continued. "I thought money would make me happy. Would make me, I don't know, more exciting? More important? Instead, I lost the one person who actually cared about me, not what I could provide." "That's an expensive lesson," I said. He nodded. "The thing is, Ellie, I've been wondering, is there any chance we could try again? Not immediately, but maybe start with friendship and see where it goes? I miss you. I miss us." I studied his face, searching for the manipulative man who'd tried to cheat me out of my fair share. Instead, I saw only the broken remains of his arrogance. "I've forgiven you, Mark," I said finally. "That's why I can sit here today without anger. But we can't go backward. That chapter of our lives is closed." "Because you hate me?" I shook my head. "Because I don't need you anymore. I built something amazing from the ashes of what you destroyed. I found strength I never knew I had. And honestly, I'm happier now than I ever was before." His eyes welled with tears. "I really messed up, didn't I?" "You did," I agreed. "But in a strange way, I should thank you. Without that push, I might never have discovered what I'm capable of." We finished our coffees with small talk. As we were leaving, he asked one last question. "Are you seeing anyone?" I smiled. "Yes, actually. A client introduced us 6 months ago. He's a widower with 2 teenagers. We're taking it slow, but it's good. Really good." Mark nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. "He's a lucky man." Walking to my car afterward, I felt lighter somehow. For years, I'd defined my success in contrast to Mark's failure. But standing in that coffee shop, seeing him humbled and regretful while I was thriving, I realized I didn't need that comparison anymore. My victory wasn't in watching him fall, or in taking half his inheritance. My victory was in rising from the ashes of his betrayal, and building something better than what we'd had together. Sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its greatest challenges. Mark intended to discard me like an outgrown sweater. Instead, he inadvertently gave me the push I needed to become the woman I was always meant to be: strong, successful, and finally, authentically happy. The end.